So, let's start with communication, feedback, and conflict in incredible workplaces. In every organization, culture is shaped through conversations, not only through formal meetings, policies, or announcements, but through the everyday way people speak, listen, respond, and resolve disagreements. Incredible workplaces are not the places where everyone always agrees. They are places where people know how to communicate openly, respectfully, and honestly. And communication is not only about information sharing, it is about clarity, trust, and alignment. When communication is strong, people understand expectations, priorities, and decisions. And when communication is weak, confusion grows, assumptions multiply, and frustration spreads. That is why communication sits at the center of an incredible workplace. Communication is also one of the strongest daily signals of the culture. Every conversation between leaders and teams sends a message about what kind of communication, what kind of workplace people are working in. Every conversation between leaders and teams sends a message about what kind of workplace people are a part of. When leaders communicate clearly, people feel respected and included. And when leaders remain silent or unclear, people begin filling the gaps with assumptions. And assumptions often create misunderstanding and mistrust. Communication as a cultural signal we are going to talk about now. Every message leaders sends carries a cultural signal. For example, when leaders explain decisions clearly, they communicate transparency. When leaders ignore questions, they communicate distance. Leaders respond to calmly under pressure, they communicate stability. And when leaders react emotionally to criticism, they communicate fear. Employees observe these signals very carefully. Even when leaders do not realize it, employees constantly read behavior and tone. Over a period of time, these signals answers important questions in the minds of employees. Questions such as, is it safe to express opinions here? Are questions welcomed or discouraged? Do leaders listen before they respond? Or are different viewpoints respected? Incredible workplaces recognize that communication is not only about speaking, it is equally about listening. How listening? Listening communicates respect, listening communicates interest, listening communicates humility. When employees feel heard, trust grows. And when employees feel ignored, engagement slowly declines. Feedback as a cultural bonding tool we are going to talk about now. Feedback is one of the most powerful cultural tools available to leaders, to all the leaders. When feedback is done well, it builds clarity and trust. And when feedback is avoided or handled poorly, it creates fear and uncertainty. In incredible workplaces, feedback follows a few simple principles. What are these? Feedback is timely. Feedback focuses on behavior, not personality. Feedback is respectful, and of course, feedback is two-way, very important part. Employees feel respected when they receive honest and constructive feedback. Now, what damages trust is not criticism, I'll tell you. What damages trust is silence followed by the judgment. For example, when a leader ignores a concern for months and then suddenly reacts strongly, employees feel surprised and defensive. But when leaders provide feedback regularly and respectfully, people see it as a guidance rather than criticism. Leaders sometimes avoid feedback because they fear difficult reactions, which is a common thing. They worry about hurting someone's feelings or creating discomfort. But avoiding feedback usually creates larger problems later. Clarity today prevents conflict tomorrow. Keep it in mind. Very strong thing. Constructive feedback helps people grow, improve, and align their efforts with organizational expectations. Let's talk about conflict in the workplace. Conflict is a natural part of any organization. Would you believe it? Yes, it is. Whenever people with different ideas, perspectives, and responsibilities work together, disagreements are going to appear. You may have seen Big Boss, just for your reference. Incredible workplaces do not eliminate conflict, they manage conflict constructively. Generally, there are two types of conflict: productive conflict and destructive conflict. We are going to learn what are these. A productive conflict focuses on ideas, improvement, and solutions. However, destructive conflicts focuses on personalities, blame, and politics. Productive conflicts can strengthen decision making. When people discuss different viewpoints respectfully, organizations often arrive at a better solution. But when conflicts become personal or emotional, it damages the trust and collaboration. The role of leadership is to encourage healthy discussion while preventing destructive behavior. And when leaders ignore conflicts, tensions build quietly. Then what happens? Teams begin to avoid difficult topics. Conversations become cautious and indirect. Over time, unresolved issues begin affecting morale and performance. Addressing issues early and respectfully strengthens a culture. That is all what we have to remember. One of the very important thing is difficult conversations. One of the most important responsibilities of leadership is the ability to have difficult conversations. Why difficult conversation? What is difficult conversation? Difficult conversations may include addressing poor behavior, clarifying expectations, handling disagreements, discussing performance concerns. Avoiding these conversations may feel easier in the short term, but avoidance often damages trust and clarity. When problems remain unspoken, frustrations grow silently. Employees may feel confused about expectations or uncertain about their performance. Incredible workplaces encourages leaders to approach difficult conversations with three intentions. Very simple: respect, honesty, and improvement. Respect means acknowledging the dignity of that person. Honestly means communicating clearly and directly. Improvement means focusing on solutions rather than blame. When conversations are handled thoughtfully, they strengthen relationships rather than weakening them. Communication shapes how people experience the workplace every single day. Every conversation, every meeting, and every piece of feedback contributes to the culture environment. Incredible cultures are not defined by perfect harmony, defined by openness, respect, and the courage to speak honestly. When leaders communicate clearly, listen actively, and address conflicts constructively, they create workplaces where people feel safe, respected, and engaged. And when people safe and respected, they bring their best energy, ideas, and commitment to the organization. That is one of the strongest foundations of an incredible workplace culture. Thank you. That brings us to the end of module.